Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aquarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for Gemini season, or if you prefer, June 2026, whatever your paradigm is, I'm here for it. I hope you're well. I'm using the Bulgarian deck, the 777 for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's via links in the description box below. The first link will take you to the extended for this video alone. That's the Selfie link. The other link, though, will take you to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. There you can get access to all of the extended content for all the signs, plus the weekly energy readings that I do every single week, and they run between 45 minutes to over an hour long, depending on how intense the energies are. And you would also get the opportunity to come participate in the Deccan walk that we're doing over there. We are 7 Deccans into 36, and it's already proving to be life-changing. So that's a thing. If you join at the higher tier, you can come participate in the live classes that we run over there and get access to every single recording of every single class that we have done up until this point, too. Yeah, so if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, links are in the description box below. I should also add, actually, that the links to book a reading with me are down there, and also the links to purchase some of the classes that I've made available for sale are also there too. So if you want to study alongside me, go and have a look. Yeah, let's flip around and have a chat about what we're actually doing here today, Aquarius, because we will start with the first most important question that you can ask yourself at this time, which is, where am I right now? This is going to be a fundamental question for, I think, the whole of 2026. So that's where we're going to start. Not what am I afraid of, what do I see coming down the pike, but where am I tangibly right now? And then, inspired somewhat by the Deccan walk being in Gemini 1, as it is right now, we're going to have a look and see what aspect of your thinking, your worldview, your belief system or belief structures is ripe for revision. Because for everyone across the board, there is some sort of evolution happening, some sort of expansion. And so we're going to dig into what that might be during this season here, and then we'll finish up with the second most important question that you can ask yourself, which is simply, what is the next step? Not where do I want to be in 5 years or 1 year or even 6 months from now, but where is the next place that I will put my foot down and take it from there. So I hope that that's all right for you. That's what I have for you. So and in the extended, we'll expand on whatever it is that comes up here today. So without any further ado, let's have a look and see where Aquarius is right now. We've got the 3 of Wands on its side. We got the Ace of Wands on its side. Okie dokie. And one more, please, for Aquarius. Oh, come now. That's not one. Right, let's have a look and see what there is anyway. We've got the 2 of Wands, we've got the 4 of Cups, and we've got the 6 of Swords, and these are all on their side too. Now, this may or may not have something to do with the fact that Pluto, who has recently taken up occupancy in your sign. By recently, I mean like November 2024, but he moves very, very slowly, so he's going to be there for a canny while yet. Has actually gone retrograde. Stationed a couple of weeks ago, and then started moving backwards. Now, this is not an unusual thing. Pluto actually retrogrades for about 5 months of every single year. So it's almost like you don't just get to have the deep lesson, you get to go back over it and make sure that you actually learned it before Pluto moves on again. So when we have a big planet that is sitting in our sign that has now gone into retrograde, what we are looking for is making sure that we have deeply understood the lesson, or perhaps even uncovering like the next layer of the lesson somehow. There's a way of thinking about the retrogrades, which is that the planet effectively is going to sleep for a little bit. But I don't, as a Capricorn ascendant who had Pluto going over their sign for some time, 15 or 16 years, I have to say, I don't think Pluto ever sleeps. It's that low, slow, constant grind, this kind of like the undermining first and then the restructuring, which is interesting because when I did the meditation before I started your reading, as I do before I do any reading, I got a single word pop into my head, and it was erosion. And it's interesting that there's that quality, given what I just said about how Pluto just seems to be like some sort of mega termite, just like eating away at your structural foundations. There is something that feels like it's being eroded, and the net result is that, quite simply, you don't seem to have a clue about what you're supposed to be doing. There's no judgment from me on that one, Aquarius. I have to say you're in good company, because, hi. King of Cups at the bottom of the deck there. But you see, all of the cards of action, or at least initiating action, are all sitting here on their side. Now, this does not diffuse or erode, if you will, the potential that they offer, but it does mean that it's not really quite as straightforward as we would like it to be in terms of what the decisions are. Because the Three of Wands here is about moving forwards. It's actually a card of outward expression, and so it's a very strong card of doing something. And the received wisdom is that whatever this chap is doing here in this upright card, we can assume that there was a preceding Ace of Wands and Two of Wands moment that led him first with the initial, inspirational desire for change. That's a big one right there, right? And the capacity to start thinking about it in those terms. And then the contemplation at the crossroads moment of which direction we're going to go in. Am I going left, or am I going right? Am I going straight through the middle, up to my fucking armpits in tick-infested grass? Who knows, right? But the choice is yours. Now, what we have going on here is somewhat very much in the nature of a retrograde planet being in your sign, where it isn't exactly that we've slammed on the anchors, as my partner would put it, and just come to a screeching halt. It's more like the pace has slowed down considerably, and we're trying to work out if we're still as invested, still as excited, still as passionate about the direction that we're travelling in as we thought we were just a few hot minutes ago. And we're kind of retreating back to the, oh, hang on, I need to check my working on this one, because I'm not entirely sure that it's going to take me where it was that I thought I wanted to go when I was thinking about things in that Two of Wands moment. So, like I said, it could be perceived as a kind of regressive step, except that it's not. It's more a slowing down to check your workings. Without the clarity of what the fuck do I do instead. Now, that could feel quite punishing, and I would not blame you in the slightest for feeling like it felt punishing. But the fact that we have this King of Cups at the bottom of the deck actually represents the sign of Scorpio, but I don't think that's particularly relevant at this point, because this is the expression of emotional mastery right here. Now, and this idea of emotional mastery is something that's been coming up for you for 18 months, something like that, right? It's gently cracking you wider and wider open so that you can achieve that level of emotional mastery, which always comes from the integration of the emotional experience, not the cutting out, ignoring it, I don't want anything to do with that aspect of the emotional experience, right? So as everything has kind of slowed down, as it is here, and we're kind of bubbling on the it's not even not being sure whether this is going to take you where you need to go, but it could feel like obstacles and obstructions are just suddenly showing up in a way that doesn't halt your progress, but it certainly slows it down considerably. And what that's doing in the space that it creates is a feeling around to see if the Ace of Wands is actually as operating as effectively as we might like it to do. Am I still feeling enthusiastic about this? Am I still feeling creatively inspired? Is this the right change that I'm making in my life right now? Is this enough of a departure from the old to represent something that is of the nature of the Ace, which is, highly novel and very, very powerful? Or is it kind of same day, different shit? Different day, same shit. There we go. Tell me about this Ace of Wands. Yeah, you see, we've got the, that's the moon card there. I actually love this depiction of the moon. And we've got the Strength card at the bottom of the deck, which is obviously representing your opposite sign, which is Leo. The moon, for me, represents Cancer, right? But there's this idea of kind of taking stock of everything around you, and more importantly, what you're doing and why. And being like, and checking in with yourself. Is it right? Now, when you were moving forwards, there wasn't really the space to think about that. There wasn't really the space to question your own decision-making processes, or even feel into whether that level of creativity and whatnot was actually present. But now you've slowed down. I love the mirrored kind of thing that's going on here with the moon card. There's room for self-examination that says, actually, even given the way that I am changing as a person, is what I was moving towards still in alignment with who I am? And the fact that the Strength card is coming up here, which is always about personal development and personal growth and that sort of thing, and it's here with the moon card, and that woman doesn't look like she's feeling particularly joyful about being what's being reflected back to her. Feels like it feels like you're kind of scouting around trying to find your purpose, Aquarius, and it's genuinely not quite as obvious as you thought it was just recently. Now, like I said, this could be entirely down to the fact that Pluto is retrograde in your sign. Yeah, it's just that kind of moment, that kind of energy. But it feels to me like it's reaching in for something deeper. We're going really, really deep, looking for what is actually authentically yours in terms of a drive towards a purpose that is authentically yours, and a way of doing it that is authentically yours. And I don't know, I just feel like whatever it has been, it's just not cutting it for you. And so when we arrive at these cards here, we've got the Two of Wands on its side, the Four of Cups on its side, and the Six of Swords on its side. We've got these competing energies, which are all kind of showing up in their potentialized state, actually. Which is to say, we don't know which one of these energies is most dominant at this point. We don't really know what to do to actualize any of these energies at the moment. The Two of Wands is a lovely card for, I have a decision to make in front of me. There is a very clear path to the left. There's a very clear path to the right. You know, if you want to be complete contrarian, like I said, you can go through the tick-infested armpit length grass and make your own way that way, but maybe there's another direction to go instead, right? But the point is, when that Two of Wands shows up, we feel like we have options, and somehow these options that we thought we had appear to have been taken off the table. It's not nearly as clear cut now as it was before, but we've got these two competing energies of the Four of Cups and the Six of Swords. And this is interesting because although the Six of Swords is a U card, Aquarius, that one, the Four of Cups is Cancer, so we're seeing it again, and it's deeply emotional, and it's connected to foundation, and it doesn't really want to move. So we've got an energy that wants to just leave all this shit behind and sail off, but we've got another energy that's kind of like, no, I'm going to sit here. And for me, the Four of Cups, at its worst, it's a kind of wallowing. Right, we're wallowing around in our own shit and going, oh, everything's so fucking awful, I can't work out what to do. I am extremely guilty of doing things like that. This is not a criticism of you. But at its best, it is an opportunity to recognise where we are a little stuck and trapped, particularly around the idea of our emotional foundation and what it is that is stopping us from seeing what might not necessarily be in the first instance, or at least the first part of it, an opportunity for movement. But, you know, we've got an angel passing this cup over here saying, like, yeah, here you go. Here's essentially what is an Ace of Cups, right, in the hand there. And we've got this guy looking at these rather dejectedly at these 4 cups that he's got on the table and going, well, these are awful. I don't even know what I'm supposed to fucking do with all of these. And he's so engrossed in what is not optimal here that he's failing to notice what is being proffered from behind. Now, for me, the Four of Cups is a card of rejection for obvious reasons. Whether that is the experience of being rejected or whether it's the experience of rejecting. And I do wonder if some part of this here, and it's a kind of ADHD sideways jump, so bear with me a second, whether some of this is am I actually alone here by myself doing all the things, or am I actively pushing people away? This came up this morning while I was making coffee, and I didn't even know where it came from, but clearly this is what it is. And what is often needed in that situation is a bit of space where we can kind of look around and go, okay, well, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And what is the fairly natural end result of that? And have I contributed in some way or another to the state that I currently find myself in? Because it doesn't feel great. Well, I'll be honest, this is not feeling like we're powerful and we're strong and we're charging forwards. But that's not to say that there isn't something extremely useful happening here, because I really do feel like there is. Whilst the obvious move for you would be to adopt the Six of Swords and go, well, okay, well, clearly this is all fucked, and I'm just going to move away from it, draw a line under it, and start something else, do something else. It's that confusion around purpose. It's the confusion around the right route forward. It's the confusion around even the idea of whether it's worth just keep putting one foot in front of the other and going in a particular direction, albeit more slowly than you have been doing, or whether you are effectively kneecapping yourself in the future by continuing to walk this road, even if it's really, really slow. And this is feeling like it's the sticking point here. And Aquarius, I feel you. It's so fucking tedious. It's so fucking tedious to have to deal with your emotional stuff, right? But this Four of Cups is saying that the whole situation is not nearly as bleak as you think it is. And in fact, with this King of Cups here, it's like there's an opportunity to see something that you didn't see, recognise something that you haven't seen. Whether that's within yourself, oh, I see that really strongly here in both of those cards, or whether it is being reflected back to you by the world around you. I mean, a lot of the energy of the moment here has that Neptunian quality of a kind of fog around it. It's all distorted and you can't see what you're looking at, and you're like, what the fuck does it even fucking mean? I don't even know. But sometimes in the space that the absence of detail can create, we've got an opportunity to feel around in a way that we wouldn't before and come across something that we wouldn't have noticed in any other way, if that makes sense. You know, instead of looking at the horizon, being as we can't see more than a foot in front of our face right now, what we can do is put our hands down on the ground near our feet and kind of feel around and get some sort of tactile sense of what the environment that we are in is. And who knows what can be picked up from the floor, you know, in that just kind of feeling around sort of energy. I know it's frustrating. There are so many things about now that are incredibly frustrating. But the shift in consciousness, and to just refer back to the Deccan walk that I mentioned at the beginning, now, the sun is currently in Gemini, and the purpose of a Deccan walk is to literally walk the sun through each 10-degree arc of movement that it does through each of the signs, right? So each Deccan is 10 degrees here. And there are corresponding tarot cards that go with these Decans. So for Gemini 1, 2 and 3, we have the 8, 9 and 10 of swords. Now, there's no way of looking at those three swords without seeing that what we have here is a culminating experience around how we process information, how we think, how we communicate, our worldview. Because the swords all relate to, you know, the issues of the mind, and the mind perceives, well, the mind perceives what the brain allows it to see. And so as we push through this cognitive crisis, which is effectively the 8, 9, 10 of swords, we arrive at a new way of seeing things. But we have to be held in place, and we have to be uncomfortable for long enough to notice that there are other ways of seeing a problem, other ways of seeing a situation, other ways of thinking full stop. So, yeah, whilst you have my commiserations that this is the current experience that you're having, it is all going somewhere and it is really important. So if we pick up these cards here now and have a look at what aspect of your worldview or belief system or belief structure, ooh, fuck. King of Cups is up for revision, ripe for revision. We've got the very nature of the King of Cups himself. Like, that card just jumped out there. Let's see what goes with it. Oh, fucking hell. I think that might have been the Queen. Let me have a look. Yes. Queen of Cups. Are you not bored of this emotional stuff, Aquarius? I have a South Node in Aquarius. Ooh, 8 of Wands. Yeah. With the 5 of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Now, like, whenever the 5 of Wands shows up, because it's Saturn in Leo, we've always got that sense of a struggle or a conflict. And that can be with other people. But quite often, the 5 of Wands is actually something we're battling with within ourselves. It's that desperately trying to find the answer, but recognizing that our brain, which is going through our mind, is going through some sort of consciousness shift. Like, until that shift is completed, we're trying to fix a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it, right? This Gemini season seems to be kind of elevating the thinking somewhat, but it's going to do it first by making you sit in what is uncomfortable. You know, you've got Pluto in your sign. Gemini now has Uranus in their sign, and these two planets are talking to each other. So they're both lending their power to the situation. Uranus wants you to be free. Pluto wants you to be powerful. Ultimately, that's what those two planets are about here. And they're working in tandem to erode anything that may be holding you back. Now, to have the King and Queen of Cups showing up simultaneously means there is a kind of peak emotional processing that is supposed to be happening here. It's less about how you express it outside of you. It's less about what you do off the back of it. Remember that the Kings are the active masculine expression of emotional stuff. Emotional mastery, emotional maturation, all that kind of thing. Whereas the Queen is correspondingly the internal, the passive, the subjective experience of X in the moment, right? And the quality of the decisions that are made by the Kings are always preempted by the quality of the work that the Queen has done beforehand. It's really important that you understand that there is a flow between these characters. And the King doesn't sit at the top because he's best. The King actually sits at the top with the Queen because there is a group dynamic here where, you know, decisions that the King makes influences what it is that the Queen then goes on to experience and process and whatever. But whatever the Queen experiences and processes, she then hands across to the King so he can start doing something with it. It's quite simply like that. So the emphasis is less on how you are actively expressing your emotion or actively doing anything with your emotion, and it's more about processing what is happening with you right now. What is it about this moment that you don't like? Obviously, there is that sense that we're not moving forwards, but there's also the question of purpose and how emotionally invested you are in the idea of purpose. And maybe the fact that you're overlooking something that is in your current existence that is deeply related to your purpose. Until the Queen can sit still for long enough to feel her way around what is actually happening right now, that shift in thinking, that evolution in thinking is not going to get an opportunity to happen. And then we have the 8 of Wands. Now, the 8 of Wands sometimes can speak to amplification, acceleration, you know, really fast movement. We'd love some of that right now, but we know that that's not what's happening. So we have to look for different ways of looking at this card. It's Mercury in Sagittarius, so it's about how information flows backwards and forwards. So it's interesting that Uranus is sitting in the sign of Gemini right now, and Uranus is considered by some people to be like a higher echelon of a higher vibration of Mercury. But I think it's more about reorienting the view that you hold right now to look for something different There is a feeling here that there's something that's been overlooked. I mean, we can't get away from that at all. And a retrograde planet will want us to go back and check that there is nothing that we've overlooked. Now, we know that there is because the Four of Cups is here. One's emotional foundation. And what's built into that emotional foundation is the idea that we wouldn't recognise help and assistance if an angel verily did fly down from the sky and proffer it to us. Well, that in and of itself is an issue, full stop. But something about this reorientation of direction, it's about a purity and a refining of your sense of purpose and why you are here, that you seem to be kind of battling yourself on somewhat. Now, I don't know if this is related to self-worth. I don't know if this is related to stuck emotional things that are still trying to come up to the surface. I'm not sure if it's related to the idea of not being quite sure how to be anything other than the outsider. It's a particular Aquarian experience, that one. It's like there's something really authentic and sovereign that's trying to come up to the surface. But you can't quite see what it is yet, and you don't know how to facilitate its birth moving forwards. Let's get some clarifiers out here and see what the Queen is dealing with. What's the Queen processing at this point? So we've got the Knight of Wands. We've got the Two of Cups in reverse, and we've got the Hermit in reverse. Right, I'm just going to speak to the obvious because it's obvious and it's here, and although it's not the kind of tarot that I usually read, I can see it, so I'm going to mention it. The Knight of Cups, the Knight of Wands with the Two of Cups is not really a good combination, whether the Two of Cups is in the upright or the reverse, right? Because what we have is a commitment-phobic person in a relationship. Now, it could be that you are the commitment-phobic person, and this is why you feel isolated and alone. It's almost kind of like I was saying before, like, have you isolated yourself? Two of Cups generally would relate to a relationship breakdown if it's showing up in the reverse like this. And this Hermit would be speaking to looking for an answer anywhere other than in yourself to try and explain what the fuck just happened. Like, the Queen is going to recognize that that is what is going on and humbly request that the Hermit actually go in the cave and go looking for the fucking answers. Or it could be that you've been on the receiving end of somebody who has been somewhat of a player here. But what is really important, before we move on from that rather basic interpretation of what's happening here, is that the Wheel of Fortune is at the bottom of the deck. So we know that there is a teaching moment here. We know that there is a purpose to whatever you are struggling with right now. And I think that's important. I have to say, like, the first ever collective tarot reading that I ever heard on YouTube, which is going back to probably 2017 or something along those lines there, right? It was it came on an autoplay on a totally different video that I was listening to, with nothing to do with tarot at all. And it was for Leo. And I said, can't do a collective tarot reading for a sign. That's absolutely ridiculous. But I was driving, so I couldn't turn it off. And my God, if over the next hour she did not lay out exactly what I had been experiencing for the preceding 12 months. And I sat in the supermarket and listened to the other 40 minutes of it while sobbing over my steering wheel. Why? Because I felt seen for the very first time in my fucking life, I think. And the point of me telling you about this is because one of the things that came out from that reading, almost tangentially actually, was the realization that I was not being personally victimized by the universe. It was something actually that collectively Leos everywhere were going through themselves, and that felt really important. And it has that same sort of quality to it here. If we can accept, rather, that there is a meaning, a purpose, a significance to the struggle that we're experiencing. It becomes less about that personal not vindication, personally experienced vindictive nature of the universe. It's kind of like, oh no, well, there's something happening here, and I have to allow this to proceed as it's happening, because the wheel is turning and it's taking me somewhere. And wherever it's taking me, it's giving me really important skills, attributes, abilities to process stuff that I will need moving forwards. So I just want to kind of contextualize the experience that you're having right now, Aquarius, because it's fucking tedious, but the beatings will continue until morale improves, right? It's got that kind of feeling about it. And it's like, until the lesson's been learned, you can't move on. So regardless of whether it's to do with relationships, or which would be my preference in terms of interpreting these cards, it's like you don't realize how closed you are in some ways. Because for me, the Two of Cups is about not just a relationship or the breakdown of a relationship. It's the extent to which we are able to open ourselves up and be properly intimate with other people. And not even just, sexually or romantically. I mean, sometimes there's a big fucking wall that we don't even know is there. And we won't know it's there, and we'll keep looping around thinking that, we can't be a part of anything, until we recognise that we have been creating that division ourselves, usually as a protective mechanism, right? So the Knight of Wands could situate the experience in the now, because the ability of the Knight of Wands to be present is very, very strong. But I think the combination of the Knight of Wands and the Five of Wands and even this Four of Cups here is much more, not the Four of Cups, the Six of Swords. It seems to be much more around the idea that you would like to be able to just put whatever you are going through right now down and fuck off and do something else much more interesting. But until the Hermit turns the right way up and facilitates the work of the Queen of Cups here, who is trying to look internally to process emotions, this stuckness will continue. But if you can open up yourself to the idea of that there are levels to you that you have not had an opportunity to experience, because there's a lot of emotional stuff that comes with that, and actually that's not optimal, for living my best life. I don't want to be feeling all this shit again. If you can open that up, I feel like it's like the tension of the moment, holding the tension of the moment reveals a different way. Or was it Jung? I think it was Jung. Holding the tension of opposites until a third way emerges. It's really tedious, it's kind of tiring, and it's that sense of being in a holding pattern that is going nowhere. I think what is at the root of this is not about unpacking necessarily personal trauma or anything like that. I actually think that the time that we had to do that was up to the beginning of 2025, and beyond that now we're being asked to kind of work with it in real time where we possibly can. Now it's about going really, really deep into oneself and beyond what was the trauma layer to something really authentic and real that exists beneath it, so that we can be infused with that kind of creative potential, activating in a world that feels like it's falling down. Now, to my mind, Aquarius, that would be extremely important work, and that would be work that I would not seek to rush, personally. From an intellectual position, if I were in your position, you bet your fucking ass I would be trying to speed run the fuck out of it, and then getting really frustrated that I can't work out what the lesson is from the universe, because I am, because I'm dreadfully impatient and very, very slow at working out what the universe wants from me. But let's have a look at this Eight of Wands. Hanged Man on his side. Yeah. I wonder if if I'm reading these. Yeah, I wonder if I'm reading this correctly. The Hanged Man is an interesting addition, although to some extent almost an obvious addition to the cards that are on the table. At this point in time, if we are going through some sort of lurch towards cognitive crisis, if we are trying to change the way that we think, we're, tackling our belief structures and seeing what's not really passing muster at this point, then it would make sense that the Hanged Man would have something to say about it. He would be an essential piece of the puzzle. But it's interesting that he's showing up here on his side, and it's got this quality of not quite surrendering. Right? I'm not quite going to allow myself to go there. I'm not going to allow myself to voluntarily submit to the uncomfortable to get the answer, because I think I can probably do it without. The problem is, exactly as I said before, you're trying to tackle this problem with the same level of consciousness that created it, to quote Einstein. And so there is a process of struggle that is part of the mechanism of how this shift in perspective actually works. And without the struggle, we don't reach the next level of consciousness, right? We have the sun there that is absolutely confirming what we're thinking, that this is all about consciousness right now. Because the sun is the ultimate expression of the conscious will for me, whereas the moon, beg your pardon, fulfills the criteria of the expressions of the subconscious and everything that's going on beneath the obvious. It feels like there's a kind of stubbornness here that you should be able to work it out because you're really smart and you do a lot of brain type thinking things inside your head. That's fine. I mean, there's no comment here on how smart you are, right? It's not a question of that. It's talking about a kind of emotional rigor, though. It's not really an intellectual process. It is a process of consciousness, but that's not something that's restricted to the brain. We know that. I am actually of the opinion that our brain is it's like a receiver, right? It actually tunes into the field rather than creating the field inside it. It's one of the things that I disagreed with Jung about, actually, as it happens. So, where your consciousness is stubbornly refusing to submit, which is what it feels like is happening here, creating more discomfort for yourself while you're already in a state of discomfort. Like, why the fuck would you do that to yourself? The Queen of Swords is playing a lesser role here because she can't play a greater role. You can't think your way through this problem because it is the mechanisms of your thinking that is changing. So whilst the concept of surrender to the circumstance may be something of a dirty word to you, and certainly I'm not a fan of the word surrender, nevertheless, we're surrendering to energies for the expansion of self, right? I mean, what's really clear to me, I don't know if it's necessarily clear to you, as you are looking at the cards as well. What's clear to me is that the Ace of Wands and Two of Wands and Three of Wands hasn't actually gone anywhere, right? They haven't screeched to a halt and then vanished and just gone poof into the air. Like, they're still there. But there's a new way of connecting to them that we're looking for here. And I love that Eight of Wands as a reorientation point, because as you know, a card numbered 8 in the tarot is always going to, some way or another, speak to power. And just as sometimes you have to go slower to go faster overall. And I think this is what it's pointing to. Like, whatever hesitations, whatever hold-ups, whatever struggle is going on right now, like it's adding to the mix. It's adding useful things to the mix, not subtracting the result. Oh. Oh. In chaos magic, we refer to something called lust of result quite often. And whilst I don't think necessarily what's happening here quite amounts to lust of result, which is the point where you want something so fucking badly that you actually actively interfere with it subconsciously to stop it from happening because you want it so much it now becomes a threat. I wonder if there's a fixation on an outcome. It's like you set your marker, that's where I'm going, that's what I'm doing. And it all seemed very straightforward and very clear, right? Me, Aquarius, I'm going to go from A to B and then on to C. And then it all got foggy and distorted. And we couldn't see where we were going properly. And now we're not even sure that we're oriented in the right direction. One of the things that I really love about this particular version of the Eight of Wands is that it puts us in the POV of the wands themselves. Normally on a card you see them going from, you know, left to right or right to left, or sometimes they're going up, sometimes they're coming down. Like, it's very, very rarely and I can't think of another deck where it happens, where you're actually in the point of view of the arrows or the wands themselves. And whilst it is ultimately true that these wands, these arrows, these spears even, will come to a point of rest at some point, the energy of this card is less to do with where they land and the fact that they're in the air in the first place. I think you've become fixated on an outcome that isn't necessarily where you're going. And this noise, the distortion, whether it's Neptunian or not, that is kind of shrouding everything at the moment, obscuring the end result, is because you're not actually supposed to have the answers. You're not actually supposed to have a point where right now, at this level of consciousness, you've decided that this is where you're going. Rather, you're supposed to be recognizing the importance of the journey that you're on, full stop. Because the one thing that remains consistent in the universe is that everything changes. And so you can guarantee, if you're feeling stuck in a holding pattern or that kind of thing, like, if the universe has put you in it, you're not moving until you've worked out what it is that the universe wants you to know. Stay there a minute. That's my courier honking. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Right, where was I? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And this that you're experiencing right now is giving you much more on the journey than you would get by simply being successful, moving forwards in accordance with how things were going up until that point. So I've just realised how long I've been prattling on for. So let's get to the point of what is the next step for you. Page of Swords. Nine of Swords. And the Temperance card reversed. Well, Lover's card is at the bottom of the deck, and to be honest, I actually welcome the Nine of Swords being here. It isn't a comfortable card, but when we're talking about transitions in terms of the way that we're thinking, this is always going to be a very necessary part of the process, right? So the Page of Swords is about being open to information. This is not of the sort of, the exchange of ideas and things like that, but open to the information that may be coming up from the internal space. But also open to the idea that maybe shit just moves differently now in 2026 to the way that you've been accustomed to it moving, right? Because we're all in the middle of a big consciousness shift. And the Nine of Swords is get everything in perspective. And there are lots of different ways that perspective can be achieved. It can be by way of, comparison to other things. So maybe make your peace with because I do feel like this guy here is being quite peaceful. He's not being particularly active. Make your peace with standing still for a while, because if your mind is shifting, it can't be forced, and it certainly cannot be pushed towards an outcome that you think this should look like. I've tried that, Aquarius. It doesn't fucking work. We have to allow the story to play out and recognize that there will be internal imbalance while that's happening. The Lover's card at the bottom of the deck is very interesting, because in the first instance it may suggest simply enjoying time with other people is one of the coping mechanisms that you can employ during the stasis of this time. But there's something even bigger going on there, because for me the Lover's card is an extremely layered card that covers lots of things. And there was a period of time, and I think it might have been 2023, I'd a guess, that it was coming up for you, where we had extensive conversations about the nature of free will. Some of you, if you've been around for a while, you will remember that. And I was pointing out, in the discrepancy between how we think our brain works and how it actually works. The conscious mind actually does very, very little of the work. The subconscious is doing the heavy lifting all the time. And what we were talking about was the nature of free will and how far it was possible actually to exercise your free will if there were emotional and subconscious impediments to you viewing reality as a whole as it is, right? And when we start to shoehorn what we consciously think should be happening into the equation, rather than allowing it to play out or allowing the subconscious blockers to come to the surface so that we can move them aside and keep moving forward. So as I said, sometimes you have to go slower to go fast. This is an invitation from the universe for you to consciously co-create with them. And in the first instance, what you're required to do is trust that where the universe is taking you is better than you can consciously envisage at this point. Your job is just to be here on the journey. That's it. And allow this experience to change you in the way that it will. You don't have to come up with the answer. You don't have to hypothesize the 57 different ways in which your consciousness could shift right now. You just have to allow it to happen. Stop cock blocking the Hanged Man, effectively, Aquarius. That's what we're talking about here. That's what it's saying. So, with that, given that I've been talking for 47 minutes straight, my coffee is cold, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go to the extended. If you'd like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. Props to you for having staying power, if that is the case. And anyway, you can do that on Self-Eye, you can do that on Circle. I would be genuinely delighted to see you in either place. But I'll leave it here for now. So, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.